welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and we've got a mix of fiction and nonfiction for you today. We had a couple of requests to throw in some more nonfiction, so we picked the topic, how to. So these are all books that have a how-to in the title. So Jill, what's your first pick?
So I started with the nonfiction for you nonfiction lovers. This is How to Prevent the Next Pandemic by Bill Gates. The COVID-19 pandemic isn't over. But even as governments around the world try to get it under control, they're also starting to talk about what happens next. How can we prevent another pandemic from killing millions of people and devastating the global economy? Can we even hope to accomplish this? Bill Gates believes the answer is yes, and he has written a largely upbeat book, that lays out clearly and convincingly what the world should learn from COVID-19, explains the science of fighting pandemics, and suggests what all of us can do to help prevent another one. This was published in May 2022, so if you want to learn how to prevent the next pandemic.
From Bill Gates. I'm also kicking it off with nonfiction. Mine is 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go by Jay Shetty. This was published last year. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller Think Like a Monk. Wasn't familiar with that book. And this is a guide to every stage of romance, drawing on ancient wisdom and new science. Nobody really sits us down and teaches us how to love. So we're often thrown into relationships with nothing but romance movies, romance novels, and pop culture to muddle through. Until now. Instead of presenting love as an ethereal concept or a collection of cliches, this author lays out specific, actionable steps to help you develop the skills to practice and nurture love better than ever before. He shares insights on how to win or lose together, how to define love, and why you don't break in a breakup. Inspired by various wisdom and modern science, he tackles the entire relationship cycle, from first dates to moving in together to breaking up and starting over. And he shows us how to avoid falling for false promises and unfulfilling partners. By living Jay Shetty's 8 rules, we can all love ourselves, our partners, and the world better than we ever thought possible. So 8 Rules of Love. How to find it, keep it, and let it go.
That last one could be tough. So I'll let you decide how useful this one is. How to Stand Up to a Dictator by Maria Ressa. What will you sacrifice for the truth? Maria Ressa has spent decades speaking truth to power, but her work tracking disinformation networks seated in her own government, spreading lies to its own citizens laced with anger and hate, has landed her in trouble with the most powerful man in the country, President Duterte. Now, hounded by the state, she has multiple arrest warrants against her name and potential 100 years behind bars to prepare for while she stands trial for speaking the truth. How to Stand Up to a Dictator is a story of how democracy dies by 1,000 cuts and how an invisible atom bomb has exploded online that is killing our freedoms. It maps a network of disinformation, a heinous web of cause and effect, and has netted the globe. From Duterte's drug wars to America's Capitol Hill to Britain's Brexit to Russian and Chinese cyber warfare to Facebook and Silicon Valley to our own clicks and our own votes. Told from the front line of the digital war, this is Marisa Ressa's urgent cry for us to wake up and hold the line before it's too late. This was also written in 2022, so if you want to know how to stand up to a dictator, this could be the one for you.
My next pick comes from our YA collection, and this is fiction, and this is How to Date a Superhero and Not Die Trying by Christina Fernandez. This was published in 2022. With humor and heart, a story proving that you don't need a superpower to be the hero, and a romantic coming-of-age story about growing up, falling in love, and surviving life. It's all set in the world of superheroes. Falling for a superhero can be dangerous. You have to trust that they'll catch you. Astrid isn't a superhero, not like the one she sees on the news, but she has something she thinks of as a small superpower. She has a perfect sense of time, and she's not going to waste a single second. Her plan for college is clear. Friends, classes, and extracurriculars, all carefully selected to get her into med school. Until Max Martin, a nerdy boy from her high school, crashes back into her life. Things with Max were never simple, and he doesn't keep to her schedule. He disappears in the middle of dates, and he cancels at the last minute with stupid excuses. When a supervillain breaks into her bedroom one night, Astrid has to face the facts. Her boyfriend, Max Martin, is a superhero. Double majoring as a pre-med was hard, but now Astrid will have to balance a double life. this wasn't part of her plan. So check out the fictional pick, How to Date a Superhero and Not Die Trying.
Not die crying. I'm glad you chose that one next, because my next one, How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying.
Oh boy.
So this one will help you stop dying. This is by Django Wexler. This is a brand new, it's on our new collection, May 2024. Groundhog Day meets Guardians of the Galaxy in Django Wexler's laugh-out-loud fantasy tale about a young woman who, tired of defending humanity from the Dark Lord, decides to become the Dark Lord herself. Davy has done this all before. She's tried to be the hero and take down the all-powerful Dark Lord 100 times. She's rallied humanity and made the final charge. But the time loop always gets her in the end. Sometimes she's killed quickly, sometimes it takes a while, but she's been defeated every time. This time, she's done being the hero and done being stuck in this endless time loop. If the Dark Lord always wins, then maybe that's who she needs to be. It's Davy's turn to play on the winning side. So, yeah. How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying. So this is obviously not nonfiction.
Oh, goodness. My next pick, I have to say I picked solely based on the title. Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, the definitive how-to guide by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hartstock. This was published back in 2019. Sharing never-before-heard stories ranging from their struggles with depression, eating disorders, and addiction, Karen and Georgia irreverently recount their biggest mistakes and deepest fears, reflecting on the formative life events that shaped them into two of the most followed voices in the nation. Let's turn the book around if you recognize these ladies. In this book, Karen and Georgia focus on the importance of self-advocating and valuing personal safety over being nice or helpful. They delve into their own past, true crime stories, and beyond to discuss meaningful cultural and societal issues with fierce empathy and unapologetic frankness. These women are the voices behind the hit podcast, My Favorite Murder. Karen is a stand-up comedian and television writer with credits on scripted shows including Portlandia and Baskets. And Georgia is a host for the Cooking Channel, a performance storyteller, and a recurring guest monologist on Comedy Central's show Drunk History. So, stay sexy and don't get murdered.
Good advice. So this one, I feel like I'm surprised we don't have more books like this in the library. How to Read a Book by Monica Wood. This is also new fiction on our new shelf. Violet Powell, a 22-year-old from rural Abbott Falls, Maine, is being released from prison after serving 22 months for a drunk driving crash that killed local kindergarten teacher Harriet Larson. A retired English teacher who runs the prison book club is facing an unsettling prospect of an empty nest. Frank Diego, a retired machinist, hasn't yet come to grips with the complications of his marriage to the woman Violet killed. When the three encounter each other one morning in a bookstore in Portland, Violet to buy the novel she was reading in the prison book club before her release, Harriet to choose the next title for the woman who remained, and Frank to dispatch his duties as a store handyman, their lives begin to intersect in transformative ways. How to Read a Book is unsparingly honest and profoundly hopeful story about letting go of guilt, seizing second chances, and the power of books to change our lives. With heart, wit, grace, and depth of understanding that has characterized her work, Monica Wood illuminates the decisions that define a life of kindnesses that make life worth living. So it sounds like a sweet book. It takes place in a bookstore.
Very cool. My fourth pick is a fiction pick, and this, again, I kind of picked by the title, How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water by Angie Cruz. This was published in 2022. Cara Romero thought she would work at the factory of little lamps for the rest of her life. But when in her mid-50s she loses her job in the Great Recession, she's forced back into the job market for the first time in decades. Set up with a job counselor, Cara instead begins to narrate the story of her life. Over the course of 12 sessions, she recounts her tempestuous love affairs, her alternately biting and loving relationships with her neighbor Lulu and her sister Angela, her struggles with debt, gentrification, and loss, and eventually what really happened between her and her estranged son, Fernando. As Cara confronts her darkest secrets and regrets, we see a woman buffeted by life, but still full of fight. This book was described as structurally inventive and emotionally kaleidoscopic. How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water is her most ambitious and moving novel yet, and Cara is described as a heroine for the ages. So It's a quick read, so check out How How not to drown in a glass of water.
How not to do things is as important as doing things. This one is also off our new fiction. We have a lot of good stuff out there. How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. This is the first in a Castle Knoll Files, and it was published in March of this year. For fans of Knives Out and the Thursday Murder Club, an enormously fun mystery about a woman who spends her entire life trying to prevent her foretold murder, only to be proven right 60 years later when she is found dead in her sprawling country estate. Now it's up to her great niece to catch the killer. It's 1965 and teenage Frances Adam is at an English country fair with her two best friends, but Frances's night takes a hairpin turn when a fortune teller makes a bone-chilling prediction. One day Frances will be murdered. Frances spends a lifetime trying to solve a crime that hasn't happened yet, compiling dirt on every person who crosses her path in an effort to prevent her own demise. For decades, no one takes Frances seriously until nearly 60 years later when Frances is found murdered, like she always said she would be. In present-day Annie Adams has been summoned to a meeting at the sprawling country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great-aunt Frances. But by the time Annie arrives in the quaint English village of Castle Knoll, Frances is already dead. Annie is determined to catch the killer, but thanks to Frances's lifelong habit of digging up secrets and lies, it seems every endearing and eccentric villager might just have a motive for her murder. Can Annie safely unravel the dark mystery at the heart of Castle Knoll, or will dredging up the past throw her in a path of a killer? As Annie gets closer to the truth and closer to danger, she starts to fear she might inherit her aunt's fate instead of her fortune. How to Solve Your Own Murder.
I have that one on my to-be-read list. My last pick takes me back to nonfiction again. This is The Garden Refresh, How to Give Your Yard Big Impact on a Small Budget. This was published back in 2022. Grow more, spend less. So you want a stylish, healthy, and productive garden that is budget and earth-friendly? Of course you do. This garden designer shows you how in this accessible and spunky guide. She shares everything you need to create a productive and lush garden that can truly be used and enjoyed. It's packed with hundreds of tips on design, plant selection, and how to address problematic situations. It also has information on which hardscape elements are worth the splurge, how to decide where to start, and how to reduce maintenance through design. That part sounds good to me.
Yes.
Inspirational, practical, and endlessly creative, The Garden Refresh is destined to become the book you turn to again and again for the best insider ideas on how to give your yard big impact on a small budget.
That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Fitting, because it's gardening season now. So I hope, like, if you're wondering what kind of how-to books do we have at the library, we gave you a nice little tour of fiction and nonfiction picks you can have.
Yeah, I hope our nonfiction lovers are happy with some of our selections. Find us on Facebook, our YouTube channel, on our Kimberly Public Library website. We hope your summer's going well. Ours is flying by. And until next time, we thank you for watching. Bye.